Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman of the Franklin County Republican Party, Doug Price.
Wow, what a good morning and welcome, and what a magnificent crowd here today. Welcome one and all. What a great crowd, and if you're like me, and I guess a few of you must be because you've shown up this morning, you may be thinking there might be an announcement of something we've been waiting for an awfully long time. So we're just delighted that so many friends from all across Ohio, and indeed all across the nation, are here today for this special and important moment in time. It's a special day for Ohio, for OHIO. Hey, let's try that. OH. OH. Magnificent. Speaking of OHIO, we're surrounded, if you look around, by those famous words of the alma mater, Carmen, Ohio, etched in stone all around us, a sweet and solemn melody with words so familiar to any Ohio Stater and really any Ohioan and beyond, echoing memories of campus days and youthful triumphs and of the beginnings of big dreams to come. How about those words, while our hearts rebounding thrill, and how firm thy friendship? Well, to formally welcome the world to campus today, I'd like to introduce a man who caused a lot of hearts to rebound and thrill due to his extraordinary athletic talents and triumphs on the football field. A man whose firm friendship to Ohio State is unparalleled. He served ably as the president and CEO of the Ohio State Alumni Association, a man who has given so much back to this institution, but also to his community and state in charitable service and exemplary service. To welcome us to this great institution, please welcome the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner in the history of the universe, Archie Griffin.
Thank you. OH. No, I said OH. Now that's better. Welcome to the Ohio State University. As Doug mentioned, my name is Archie Griffin, and we gather today at the Ohio Union, the hub of student life, to welcome back one of our own. In fact, Governor Kasich and his wife Karen are both proud graduates of the Ohio State University, and we are delighted, absolutely delighted. We're delighted to have them back today for this exciting occasion. As we await the governor's special announcement, I would like to offer our sincere gratitude to Governor Kasich for his long and distinguished career in public service. For more than 140 years here at Ohio State, our motto has been education for citizenship. And we are pleased that Governor Kasich used his Ohio State political science degree to serve the public at the highest levels of government. Yes. And we are especially honored that the governor would choose to make today's big announcement at his alma mater. Our school song at this university, Carmen, Ohio, contains a line which is carved into the walls here at this student union. That line is, "How firm thy friendship, Ohio." And over the years, we can say that John Kasich has been a firm friend of this university. From his days as a state senator to his time in Congress to his 2 terms as governor, Governor Kasich has always been a true supporter of Ohio State and higher education in Ohio. And I've come to know Governor Kasich over the years, and I can tell you he gets it done. And we all wish this Buckeye family the very, very best. I hope everyone enjoys their visit to our campus, and as always, go Bucks! Thank you.
Thank you, Archie, so very much. There's certainly a warm feeling of togetherness and hopefulness in the room today, and we must have faith in the great and good cause that we're gathered here for. and the sunshine. I'd like to think that divine providence is smiling down upon us today, but let's not take any chances. To lead us in asking for guidance and protection from above, please welcome to the stage the leader of the faithful from the St. Augustine's Anglican Church in Westerville, Father Kevin Maney.
Good morning. Let us pray. God, our Father, creator of heaven and earth, King of all the nations, we thank you for the gift of this new day and ask that you bless this event and our nation. Grant your servant John the grace and wisdom to speak and act with courage, boldness, and power today and in the coming days. Give the American people ears to hear and hearts and minds that are open to his message. And in all things, may your will be done, so that your name may be glorified and honored by all people. We ask it all in the name and power of Jesus Christ our Lord, who is alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a common act of respect that we voluntarily pledge allegiance to our flag. But before we do so, may I ask you to recognize some uncommon citizens in our presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the hymn on the wall says, "The seasons pass and the years will roll." We're joined today by many veterans in our midst of many wars and conflicts, and some special veterans of the Vietnam War, the Cold War, and Korea. But in just a few weeks, we will mark the 70th anniversary. A full 70 years have passed since the end of World War II. At least 2 World War II veterans are with us today. At 92 years young, Ed Turlow, and 93 years young, Don Jakeway. Will you gentlemen wave and accept gratitude? Another man of uncommon courage and faith. Governor Kasich asked him to serve as his Director of Veterans Services because of his lifetime of service. Now retired, he continues to serve his state and country as Ohio's representative to the World War I Centennial Commission. His plane was shot down over Vietnam, and he spent 5 unspeakably terrible years in the too casually called Hanoi Hilton. And yet somehow, he persevered and returned a man of faith and forgiveness to lead us in the pledge to our flag. Please welcome a true, great American hero, Colonel Tom Moe.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Won't you join me now as we recommit ourselves to our wonderful country through the Pledge of Allegiance to our beautiful flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big part of the Governor John Kasich story is a laser focus on creating an environment for economic growth and prosperity. Here's a story of a couple of dreamers. Kathleen Dewey is the co-founder and president of the Mount Carmel Brewing Company in Cincinnati. For the past 10 years, she and her husband Mike have worked together to build their dream, putting their whole heart and, like most small business owners, whole life savings into their work. It's paying off, and they're an emerging success story in Ohio's growing craft beer industry. In fact, their success has earned them this year's Emerging Excellence Award from the Claremont County Chamber of Commerce. Please join me in welcoming Kathleen.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Dewey, and my husband and I own Mount Carmel Brewing Company in Cincinnati. At our brewery, we don't just make grain, water, hops, and yeast turn into beer. We must create the right environment for Mother Nature to make the beer herself. This is kind of like what has happened here in Ohio the past 4 years. Governor Kasich says that government doesn't create jobs, people do. As governor, John Kasich has helped create the right conditions for Ohioans to do what they do best, create. Create small businesses, create jobs, create great beer, create a better future for themselves. I'm not here as a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a political independent who votes my conscience. I'm here because my husband and I are among the many people across our state who have been able to push their dreams forward, not just because of our own hard work and the work of our employees, but because of John Kasich's ideas and hard work too. Thank you, Governor. I believe that what John Kasich does, he does for us. Eliminating taxes on small business, balancing budgets, a common sense approach to government. All of these things are creating the conditions for Ohioans to thrive and pursue their dreams. Just think of what America would be like if those kinds of things happened everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. There's those words Archie mentioned, how firm thy friendship. There are many, many friends of John and Karen Kasich here today, some of decades' endurance, far too many to mention. Many of the governor's great partners in the Ohio Senate and the Ohio House are here today. But at the risk of missing someone, I'm still going to ask you to recognize and welcome just a few very quickly that I see in the crowd. The chairman of the Ohio Republican Party, Matt Borges. Please welcome Matt. The great Attorney General of the state of Ohio, Mike DeWine. Great public servant, Auditor of State, David Yost. And the man who believes all elections should be fair and accessible, and he makes them that way, the great Secretary of State, John Husted. We're joined by at least two members of Congress here today, great old friends and colleagues of the governor, Pat Tiberi and Steve Stivers. And finally, Governor John Kasich's great partner at the State House, our Lieutenant Governor, Mary Taylor. Thank you. Well, another good friend of John Kasich's made a special trip here today from New Hampshire to be with us. Why? Because he knows John Kasich's extraordinary ability and leadership skills. How's that? Well, in large part because he is a man of extraordinary ability and achievement himself. So he recognizes what it takes to take on great challenges and put together the teams with resolve and resilience to succeed. Great challenges like balancing the federal budget, like reforming Washington and taking on Pentagon waste. He knows this because he was there and fought alongside John Kasich, elected to the United States from New Hampshire. His own exemplary service took him to the United States Senate, where he continued the fight. Ladies and gentlemen, who better to tell us what it took and what it takes? Did I mention he's from New Hampshire, by the way? What it took and what it takes. Please give a great Buckeye welcome from the great state of New Hampshire, Senator John Sununu.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Doug, for that great introduction. I was certainly proud to serve for 6 years in the United States Senate. Met a lot of great senators in my day, but as I said backstage to Archie, Griffin, you are a great American. It is an honor to be here today to talk with you just a little bit about John Kasich. I know many of you have known him a long time. He is someone I am proud to call my friend. I've spent a great deal of time with him. He's been a mentor. He's been a great leader in Congress. But maybe most importantly today, I believe he will be the next president of the United States. I first met John Kasich nearly 20 years ago. I was a brand new member of the United States House of Representatives, a newly minted congressman. I was assigned to the Budget Committee. And as soon as I went to the committee room in Washington and met John Kasich, I knew right then he was a special person. Kathleen just talked about the importance of conscience in everything you do, certainly not least of all casting your vote and serving the public. John Kasich has always been about conscience. He didn't worry about polls. He didn't worry about popularity. He did what he thought was right for his family, for his neighbors, for his state, and for his country. On the he led a group of young members, young conservatives, who wanted to make a difference. He listened to us. He debated. He argued. And at the end of the day, he helped us achieve things that we honestly did not think we had in us. I saw firsthand the energy and the skill and the dedication that he brought to that fight to get America's financial house in order. I saw the passion he had, the incredible intensity and passion for solving tough problems, for taking on challenges that others were afraid to tackle. Then like now, Washington was full of politicians who constantly talked about cutting taxes or balancing the budget. They all had hopes and dreams and aspirations. But John Kasich has never been much of a politician so much as a leader. He wasn't about talk. Talk was cheap. He took on the challenge. He cut spending. He took on special interests. He cut taxes. He led the way to America's first balanced budget since man walked on the moon. And I'll tell you something else. He can do it again. On the Armed Services Committee, John Kasich led the way to fight fraud, to cut wasteful Pentagon spending, taking billions of dollars back and reinvesting it in the men and women who serve our country in uniform. Now, John Kasich is compassionate, but he's also incredibly tough. But he's generous. He's smart, but he listens to us. These are the skills such a unique and extraordinary leader. More important, they have made him an effective and a successful leader. Whether it's balancing America's budget, reforming and strengthening our armed services, restoring Ohio to prosperity, John Kasich has delivered a record of success and achievement that no one else in this race can match. In my time in Washington, I saw hundreds of politicians in the House and the Senate talk about what they wanted to achieve. Leaders like John Kasich have already delivered time and time again. And most of all, and my friends, that most of all is what America needs today. A president that doesn't need any on-the-job training. John Kasich is that leader. He's ready, he's strong, he's tough, he's honest. And that is precisely why John Kasich will be the next president of the United States. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sununu. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to enjoy a little bit of music, and we'll be right back.
Stupid, very bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emma, Reese, and Karen Kasich, and the next President of the United States of America, Governor John Kasich.
Wow. Huh? Wow. Well, listen, standing here with me, of course, are the people who I've dedicated my life to. My sweet daughters, Emma and Reese Kasich. You know, I remember when they were born. You remember that, sweetie? I kept saying to the doctor, how's it going, you know, and he's trying to deliver two, and finally he looks me square in the eye and he said, can you shut up? I'm a little busy right now. And they came out, and I could hold them in the palm of my hand. It was so sweet. And so I, along with Karen, have dedicated our lives to giving them a better life than we were able to ever get from our parents. And you know what? They're doing fantastic. Emma and Reese Kasich. And my wife, pray for her, she's married to me, okay? From the very tips of my toes to the top of my head, I just love my wife so much. Such a great partner and such a great lady. So I want to tell you that it's this whole business of the American dream, isn't it? That we can all work to make sure that next generation is going to be in a position of greater strength than what we received. And I get my inspiration from the people who came before me. And I want to tell you about a few of the ones before me. I'd like to start with my Uncle Steve. Uncle Steve was a tough guy, you know, the son of a coal miner, rough and gruff and tell it like it is, and he found himself at Iwo Jima. And he looked around during that battle, and he saw a lot of people dying. Uncle Steve was not a church-going man, but in the middle of all the violence and the blood and the death, he said to God, if you will take me off this island, I will go to church every day for the rest of my life. And he did. And he did. And Uncle Steve, when Uncle Steve came home from the war, the brothers all slept in the same room. They didn't have a lot. And Uncle George told me that he would have nightmares and he would speak in Japanese. And he told his brothers, never wake me from that nightmare, because I don't know what will happen. Let me sleep and wake up on my own. And Uncle George, he's here today. He's right over here. He's 89 years old. I so love my Uncle George. He's the patriarch of our family. Well, Uncle George was in the infantry, and he was scheduled to take a boat from England to Belgium. But the division he was in couldn't all fit in the boat. So they asked Uncle George to wait until the next day. Well, that boat left England on its way to Belgium, and a submarine launched a torpedo and sunk that boat, and everyone on it perished. The next day, Uncle George took another boat, and he landed in France. And he fought with great honor, and he returned home and became a guidance counselor and guided young people for the next 38 years of his life. What a man. You know, where my father-in-law, we call him Popsy, my grandfather, joined the Marines at the age of 17, wanted to serve his country. But I guess most important, my mom and dad. You know, Mom was, she was a visionary, didn't get the education. You know, her mother could barely speak English, but boy, was she smart. And if you think I have opinions, you never met my mom. And my father, he was the mailman. They called him John the Mailman, and when we laid my mother and father to rest, there were countless numbers of people who came and said, John the Mailman, he watched out for all of us. And they gave up so much, didn't take care. I wish they'd have spent more on themselves, but just no matter what you told them, they weren't going to do it because it was all about the next generation. And they are the ones that have inspired me. And all of you that are here today, you're the same way, aren't you? You got those people who did so much for you, who are your heroes. They don't have to be famous. They're just people you love and that you admire. That American dream is pivotal for the future of our country. But I have to tell you, there are a lot of people in America today who are not sure that that American dream is possible, that that American dream is alive. And I can understand their concerns. You know, when I was a kid, you went out and you got a job and you worked at that job your entire lifetime. You got your health care, you got your retirement, and everything was good. Today, you could be a 51-year-old man, and one day after serving and doing everything the right way, somebody walks into your office and says, I'm sorry, but we don't need you anymore. Can you imagine that conversation? Could you imagine that dad when he's driving home, or that mom when she's driving home? They lose confidence. They wonder what their future is. Can they get another job? Can they support their family? Will anybody be there to help them? Or how about moms and dads today? They send their kids to college. Many of these young people ringing up massive amounts of debt, trying to get an education, and they're living in the attic. And mom and dad are wondering, will they get a job? Will they pay their bills? What kind of a future are they going to have? Or at the same time, we can also think about what all of us fear greatly, and that is the problems of bad health. Can I afford those expensive drugs that I need to survive? What is it going to cost me to get treatment, just not for myself, but for one of the loved ones in my family? Will I be bankrupted and lose everything I have, everything I've worked for? It's a real fear. Or the fear of the tsunami of drugs. It's everywhere, isn't it? The kids that are here, and there are many of them, don't do drugs. Don't put that big 1,000-pound pack on your back and keep you from your God-given purpose. But all moms and dads worry that those drugs are going to wash away our own neighborhoods and maybe wash away our children. And how about those that struggle to make ends meet? You know, some people just say, oh, well, just work harder or pull yourself out by your bootstraps. I believe in all that. Some people just don't have the fortune that many of us have. And they struggle. They struggle for a whole lifetime, and they worry that can they rise? Can they pull the rest of their family members up the ladder, the promise of America, and they worry about it? Or how about if you're a member of the minority community, an African American? You wonder, the system, I think, sometimes doesn't just work for me, but sometimes I feel like that system works against me. You think about the troubles that many of our African Americans still face today in a world where we have worked to provide equal rights and opportunities. Sometimes they're not so sure, and I don't blame them. Or how about all of us? We pick up the paper, it's Chattanooga, it's Fort Hood, it's ISIS. Are we safe? Are we going to be safe to go to the mall? Are we safe to leave our homes? These are the worries that many Americans have. But I have to tell you, as serious as these are, and they are very serious, we've had a lot worse. Much worse in this country. Think about it. The Civil War, you remember reading about it? I mean, it's not just neighbors fighting against neighbors, but it was even family members, kin, fighting against one another and killing one another on a battlefield right in America. How about the racial violence that we experienced in this country? The early days of television, when they put the dogs and the gas and the batons on people of another color, or the world wars, where many in our families never came home, leaving widows and children without a dad. Or the Depression. The Depression. Ask your grandfather, ask your mom and dad about that Depression. My father used to say that he'd go down to the store and get some food for the family, and the guy would say, "We'll put it on your bill." There was no bill. That's what it took for America to get through the Depression. And you all remember that crystal clear morning and the horror we felt on 9/11. But guess what? We've always got through it because the testing is what makes you stronger. It's the challenges that make you better. I have lived through them, and I have become stronger for them, and America has become stronger for them. And here's how we've done it: by staying together, not by dividing each other, but by staying together with our eyes on the horizon. With our eyes on the horizon about the future. We have a little town in Ohio called Wilmington. They followed that formula. And let me tell you about these folks. They played by the rules. Worked every day, highly productive, teamwork. And one day an employer said, "We're leaving. We're out of here." And thousands of people, thousands of hardworking, God-fearing people like your neighbors went from getting a paycheck on a Friday afternoon to visiting a food pantry so they could feed their kids. I was down there in 2010 after this earthquake, economic earthquake hit Wilmington. We had a campaign bus. My wife was with me. We walked through that food pantry. We looked at the people, and preachers and civil servants and leaders and caregivers. They were at the food pantry, but they hadn't lost any hope because they had their eyes on the horizon. We got back on that bus. I will never forget it as long as I live. We got back on that bus, and I said, folks, do you understand? Some of them had been with me for a long time, so they got it. But some of the others were rookies. And I said, do you understand what we are doing here? This isn't a political campaign. And by the way, either will this be. This is not a political campaign. Did you see those people? Did you see the tears in their eyes? Did you see them hugging their children? Did you see them not hopeless? We're going to join in and we're going to help them, because it is our job and our mission as human beings, as children of God, to work with them, to lift them. And guess what? And in Wilmington today, the sun's coming up. I told them that the sun would come up again. It hasn't reached its zenith, but the sun is rising. And the sun is going to rise to the zenith in America again. I promise you it will happen. Listen, do you know who does this? See, it's you and me. See, it's teachers and preachers and moms and dads and doctors, construction workers. Like that sweet man in Brown County that saw his family washed away over the weekend. Keep him in your prayers. Police and firemen, and people like my dad, the mailman, John the mailman, because we are the clue. We are the glue that holds our country together. How about, as for me, you look, I'm just trying to do my best, okay? I came here to Ohio State. I found myself on the 19th floor of one of those towers. You could hit it with a stone from here. I had 15 roommates. The place was 23 floors high. The tower next door, the same size. Ohio State can be a pretty intimidating place, okay? It's big. It is a big place. And I left my dorm room, went down to the first floor, and I walked just right down the path to Ohio Stadium. And it was a time when you could actually walk in that stadium. They didn't have that one end closed in. And I walked into that stadium, I swear this happened, and I walked right to the 50-yard line. There was no one in the stadium that day. And I looked around. All of those seats, those big structures that were there, and I thought to myself, either this place is going to take me down or I'm going to take it down, one way or the other. Either it was going to be me, either it was going to be me or it was going to be a place, kids, because you'll face it someday, to help me move forward. You know what's amazing? I'm back here today. You could throw a stone and hit that stadium, or you could hit that dormitory so many years later. And guess what? I am here to ask you for your prayers, for your support, for your efforts, because I have decided to run for President of the United States. they ask you all the time, like it's a trick question or something, you know. Well, why do you want to do this? I mean, it's like they're going to catch you, right? I mean, if you can't answer that question, you ought to be back at the 50-yard line at Ohio Stadium wondering about your future. But I do this because, well, first of all, if we're not born to serve others, think about this. I want you to think about this. If we're not born to serve others, what were we born to do? I do this for my family, of course, from my sweet family, for my neighbors, Molly, for my friends of many, many, many years, many of whom are working with me today, 30, 40 years later. I really do it for everyone. And I have to humbly tell you, and I mean humbly tell you, that I believe I do have the skills, and I have the experience. I have the experience and the testing. The testing, which shapes you and prepares you for the most important job in the world. And I believe I know how to work and help restore this great United States. And I have to tell you, it's a daunting challenge. I was just at Wendy's on Saturday up here on Hudson Avenue, and the two wonderful African-American fellows were there, and I walked in, I was standing behind them, and one said to the other one, I don't know what I believe what I'm seeing, but I think that's Governor Kasich standing behind me. And they said, you better run. Do you know what that meant to me? Two African-American guys, one with a knee on his leg, a brace on his knee, and another one with a cane. And I said, well, you know, people are going to have a lot more money than I am. And they looked at me and they said, but you got statistics. You got statistics. So some are going to ask, as they always have, why do you think you can do this? You know, all of my life, people have told me, you can't do something, okay? And I'll tell you why. It's because I do believe in the power of very big ideas, big, bold ideas. In 1976, I went out to the convention in Kansas City and not only worked for Ronald Reagan, but I worked with Ronald Reagan, and I got to travel with Ronald Reagan. Yeah, I actually knew the guy, okay? The real guy, not from a history book. He lost at that convention. I'd been managing, I think, 5 states for him at that convention. I mean, you talk about lightning striking me. I was 24 years old. I walked in. They were one man short and said, could you manage 5 states for the governor? I had no idea what they were saying. I said, of course I could, okay? I had no idea about it. Well, he lost, as you know. And I was there when he met with his closest advisors. And he said, we've lost the battle. We haven't lost any war, because we'll all be back. And I'm going to fix America with all of your help. Did. And it further cemented my notion that big ideas change the world. Big ideas change the world. So I came back here to Ohio, and I was all charged up, and I was working as an aide, and I came back, and I remember meeting with one of my buddies, and I said, you know, I think I'm just going to run for the state senate and beat that guy we've been watching. And I remember he was drinking something, and it fell on the floor when I told him that. People, look, I was 24 and a half years old. I had no relatives that lived in this state. I didn't really know anybody, but I had a big idea. And you know what we did? We went out and we got moms and dads, a lot of moms, who went door to door and rang doorbells. And the weekend before the election, One of the local newspapers said he's a fine young man, but he has no chance to win. Well, I won that election with the help of the army of volunteers. I went on to chair the Health Committee, where I learned to work across the aisle because the House was run by Democrats, and that is where I learned that policy is far more important than politics, ideology, or any of the other nonsense we see. You know, they said it couldn't be done. We proved them wrong. And then at the ripe old age of 30, I decided I'm going to run for Congress. My mother and father are like, Johnny, what are you doing now, okay? Well, they said I couldn't win. I was too young. And by the way, I was going to run against an incumbent. In 1982, it was like the worst year. We lost 26 Republican seats that year. I was going to run against a guy who got one of his degrees from Harvard. That's when I knew I had an edge. Clearly, he couldn't have gotten into Ohio State, and I knew I had an edge. And in 1982, I was the only Republican in America to defeat an incumbent Democrat all across this country. And guess what? Here's the irony. I got to go to Washington and work with President Ronald Reagan. You know? They said it couldn't be done, and we proved them wrong again. And then I got down to Washington and got on the Armed Services Committee, where I served for 18 years on national security. And I was there, and I discovered that these hammers and screwdrivers had cost thousands of dollars, and it was taking the resources from the people that needed it, who were serving in the military. We were wasting money, and I said, we need to clean this up. And they're like, no, come on, it's the Pentagon. You forget about it. It can't happen. Well, we passed some legislation, and we made things right. We saved money, we improved the system, and we helped the military. They said it couldn't be done, and we proved them wrong again. Let me be clear. Our military must be improved. We need to cut the bureaucracy, and we need to strengthen our services. Now, I'm a person that doesn't like to spend a lot of money, but in this case, national security climbs to the very top of the heap because we must be strong and we must assume our role as leaders of the world. So, 6 years after I got to Congress, I got on the Budget Committee. And I remember going to those first few meetings, Bob. I mean, it was like terrible, and I was complaining. I was up right here at a gas station in Westerville. And I'm saying, these people don't want to do anything. And some guy walked around the pump, and he looked me square in the eye. He said, if things are so bad, what are you going to do about them? So I flew down to Washington. I met with my staff, about 6 of them. And I said, I think we should just write a budget for the United States of America. And they said, well, there's like 100 people at the White House working on a budget and probably 50 up here, and we only have 6. And I said, I know we're overstaffed, but we stay out of our way, we'll be able to get this done. And we wrote a budget for the United States of America. And why? Everybody knows me as a budget guy. It's not about numbers. It's about vision. It's about values. And we do not have the right, as grown-ups, to ring up debts to suit ourselves and pass them on to the next generation. We don't have that right. 10 years of my life I worked at this. My first budget was 405 to 30. I had the 30. My staff was depressed. I thought we were doing pretty well. That's how I was. Well, we just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. And you heard my great friend John Sununu. By the way, he's a wonderful, wonderful man. John Sununu had not come to me and told me he was going to help me in New Hampshire, I wouldn't have done this. I've just got to tell you, he is remarkable, and we did it together. And the politicians didn't care about, they didn't care about anything about being reelected. They cared about fixing America, Pat. They cared about getting the budget balanced and getting the economy going. You know what? They said it couldn't be done. They said it was too big, too hard, too much politics. And we proved them wrong again, and we balanced that federal budget. We balanced it. You want job creation? You balance the books. Am I right? You balance the books. And if I'm president, or maybe I should say when I am president, okay? I will promise you that my top priority will get this country on a path to fiscal independence, strength, and we will rebuild the economy of this country because creating jobs is our highest moral purpose, and we will move to get that done. And by the way, how about a little balanced budget amendment to the Constitution so Congress will start doing its job, huh? So I left. You know, I left Washington and had a great time. You know, I worked at Lehman Brothers and learned about businesses, and I went to Fox News, where, as you know, I was a giant television star, and I had a great time. But you know, I had a calling. It was like, here's kind of how it went. Didn't hear anything, but it was clear to me. You've had an amazing life. You've got a lot of skills. You're going back. You're going back. And I sensed it when I was on a trip and I came back and called my friends together and said, I guess we got to do this. And they, you know, a lot of people, the doubters, they said, well, you know, you haven't been in politics for 10 years, in a decade. You have never run statewide, and we haven't defeated an incumbent in 36 years in Ohio. Incumbents don't lose. So we put together a vision, we put together a team. They said it couldn't be done, and we proved them wrong again. And then we took over the reins, but you know, we didn't go unprepared. We knew what we wanted to do, because I'm going to tell you, I'm president. I know what we need to do, okay? There's no confusion about that. I know what needs to be done. I have been there at all levels, okay? But we came in here, $8 billion in the hole, a loss of 350,000 jobs, 89 cents in the rainy day fund. One guy said that he gave him $1 just to double the rainy day fund. A lot of hopelessness here, particularly among the poor and minorities. People said maybe Ohio's best days are behind them. I thought that was just a bunch of baloney. And I said, not only will we get this budget balanced, but we'll cut taxes. And they're like, are you kidding me? There's no way we can do that. So we went to work. And we didn't have to really slash things. We just had to use a 21st century formula. Improve things, innovate them, make a better product at a lower price. You know, let mom and dad stay in their home rather than being forced in a nursing home. Let them stay in their own home where they'll be healthier and happier. And if we have to knock down the special interest to get it done, so be it. And that's what we did. Now, today, four and a half years later, $8 billion in the hole, $2 billion surplus. A loss of 350,000 jobs, a gain of 350,000 jobs, and tax cuts of $5 billion, the largest in the country. And as I hope you all know, economic growth is not an end unto itself. If you're drug addicted, we're going to try to rehab you and get you on your feet. If you're mentally ill, prison is no place for you. Some treatment and some help is where you need to be. You're the working poor. We're going to give you an opportunity to take a pay raise and not bang you over the head because you're trying to get ahead. Oh, we're changing that system. If you have an autistic son or daughter, for most of them, they can get insurance, and we'll work to make sure all of them have it. For the developmentally disabled, they're made in God's image. They have a right to rise. They have a right to be successful. And with all this, they said it couldn't be done. And guess what? We proved them wrong again. And I'm going to take what we've learned here in the Heartland, that band of brothers and sisters that I work with every day, and we are going to take the lessons of the Heartland and straighten out Washington, D.C., and fix our country. Well, and now they're going to say, got a lot of them back here, they're going to say, well, nice guy or good guy or whatever or not a good guy, whatever they're going to say, okay? Well, I don't know if he can win. But with you and you, sweetheart, okay, can you paint signs? And with all of you, together, we'll prove them wrong again, won't we? We'll prove them wrong again. Thank you. So our team, we'll tame the bureaucracy. We'll restore some common sense. Mary Taylor has the Common Sense Initiative. Get rid of all those stupid rules. Well, we would do that in Washington. How about putting some people in the government that understand job creators and respect them rather than beating them down? How about that for an idea? How about some common sense? And make America stronger militarily. But folks, here's the thing that I want to say to you, and I said this at my inaugural. Some people think they just don't matter in this. Do you know how wrong that is? We got this Holocaust memorial, and there's a line etched that says, if you save one life, you've changed the world. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? You save one life, you've changed the world. And the Lord will record what you've done for another in the book of life. Now, we've got some values that we need to think about that can bring us together. Because, folks, we're a divided country, but we can fix it. I'll tell you what I think some of them are. Personal responsibility. The dog ate my homework, went out in the 5th grade, okay? Here's the thing. We own our lives. If you're hurting, we'll help you. My mother used to say that it is a sin not to help somebody who needs help, but it's equally a sin to continue to help somebody who needs to learn how to help themselves. Personal responsibility needs to be restored in our country. Let's teach our children. Resilience. Everybody doesn't get a trophy just for showing up, folks. You know what resilience is? It's getting knocked down, and I have been knocked down so many times. But getting knocked down's not the problem. It's refusing to get up. We need to teach our kids, teach our children about resilience and remind ourselves that you're 51 years old and you lost your job. You're going to come back stronger and better, and we'll help you. Empathy. This one is so important. I just would ask you to think. Put yourself in the shoes of another person. We're so quick to make judgments today in our country. Don't walk so fast. You know, yesterday I was coming downtown and there was a lady, and she was older, and she had a cane, and she was barely walking. She was putting one foot in front of another. I wanted to stop and just hug her, encourage her. People who have not been dealt the best hand in life. Yeah, we want to hold them accountable, but the Lord wants our hearts to reach out to those that don't have what we have. I mean, that shouldn't be hard for America. That's who we are. When people have studied our country, they have talked about our compassion. And we need to bring it back. Empathy. Don't be so quick to judge. Me too. Okay? Me too. And then teamwork. I know Tom Moe is up here. You know, one time he used to run the veterans. I call it the great arc of life. The man goes in the military. He sits in the Hanoi Hilton, beaten all the time in a tiny little cell. He comes home, and I put him in charge of the veterans. I mean, this was the arc, the beautiful arc of what's right. Tom had a little code. I don't know where he is right now. Here he is right here. And he tapped out a code that kept them all together. And it was team that carried them through the most difficult times. Uncle George, it was team that helped you to be successful, wasn't it? The Vietnam veterans and the Iraqi veterans and the Afghanistan veterans, we do best. Or the Depression when we all hung together. Teamwork, team. They're not the enemy. They're part of our team. We can disagree, they're our team. And then family. Look at these families here. It's the building block of America. It's the building block of our culture. Let's recognize it. And of course, faith. And faith is real simple for me. It's about the do's, not about the don'ts. And what it's really about is God didn't put us on this earth just to take care of ourselves. He put us on this earth to make things a little bit better because we lived here. And so there's some that are going to try to divide us. We see about all the time. You know, forget it. I don't pay any attention to that kind of nonsense. At the end of the day, it's about being together because, you know, it says, we the people. And by the way, if you think that I or anybody who becomes president or a big shot, we don't move America. Oh, we do our part if we have courage and intelligence, but it's all of us in the neighborhoods, in the families, across the country. We're the strength and the glue. Please don't lose sight of it. As for me, I'm just a flawed man, trying to honor God's blessings in my life. I don't even understand it all. He's been very good to me. And I want you to know that I will do my very best to serve you because you are in my mind's eye. Who are you? Get up every day, go to work hard, follow the rules, come home, spend with your family, and at night you go to bed and say your prayers for your family, for your neighbors, and for our nation. And folks, as it has been said many times, the light of a city on a hill cannot be hidden. The light of a city on a hill cannot be hidden. America is that city, and you are that light. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all very much.
of this town. Even if that doesn't ring true, you've been all over, and it's been all over you. It's a beautiful day to let it get away. It's a beautiful day. Touch me, take me to that other place. Teach me, I know I'm not a hopeless case. See the world in green and blue. See China right in front of you. See the canyons broken by cloud. See the tuna fleets clearing the sea.